Oh, I was going to say, I think that the item that they found that was farthest away from the actual fuel tanks would have been from the cockpit area, and it was the pilot's armrest. And that was the only thing that they found of the cockpit area.
I didn't understand the navigator's drift tray until Russ explained it to me. I just thought the navigator's drift tray would be sort of his chart table.
Oh, right.
Where he was, you know, navigating.
Me too.
But it's not. And the navigator's drift tray was found with gas on it, or it had been exposed to gas. These planes put out drift targets. They look like large grenades or small canisters with a fin. And they put these out and they would spread, I'm not sure what the substance was
it's
inside.
Aluminum powder.
Aluminum powder.
Yeah.
And I think aluminum powder was found.
It was
on
found
the scene.
On the
sea
surface.
So these drift trays were used to set the drift target out. And I guess it helped with navigation, and that's why it was called the navigator's drift tray, because he needed to know the currents and so forth.
And it surprised me that that was kept in the rear compartment.
Because that's where you'd set out the canister to see.
Right.
And those were used just to evaluate the landing conditions?
I guess, to figure out how to taxi or take off. You have to take off into the wind. You want to see what the currents are doing, what the waves are doing.
And was the only hatch on the top to get into the fuselage, or were there also like doors at the pilot and co-pilot positions, or after there?
There were doors. I think that there was an emergency hatch in the pilot and co-pilot's position, and then there was also some aft, extremely aft in the fuselage. I have the forward cockpit area had 2 emergency hatches, 1 each above the pilot and co-pilot. There were also 2 life rafts also in the forward compartment.
And more life rafts than aft. Mm-hmm.
So that's something that I made a note of, because we could quite possibly see and have seen life rafts in other aircraft wreckage. Yeah, but it also looks like a rock. Same sort of
We
thing
saw
that
it in the video, actually.
Yeah.
Rock.
Rock, rock.
Rock, rock.
Rock, rock.
I read it somewhere, but now I can't remember. The weight of the flying weight of the Clipper after it was
Loaded or empty?
Fully fueled?
it's empty flying weight.
I think it was 8,600 or something. Let me look. See if I see it. Empty, 24,000 pounds. Oh, but equipped. Empty but equipped. Payload could be 9,495 pounds.
Wow, it's a lot of stuff.
12 tons.
It's not as much as you think, because back then they were making stuff to last, so it was heavy as hell.
Yeah.
Think about that
Just thinking about
typewriter.
the payload in Cherokee 6.
Oh yeah, what's that?
Like
No, just a
600 pounds.
How much?
Like 600 pounds.
600, yeah.
That's
What's
empty.
Herc and Argus are each about 2 tons, 4,000 pounds.
Argus is 4,000. I don't know how much Herc is.
Isn't Herc like 8, 6 or
Oh,
8?
he might be with that deep water foam on him. He might be
I think
closer
it's
to 6.
6 or 8. I don't know.
Sorry, ROVs are gender neutral.
Are they?
They are.
I guess, yeah.
They're always referred to as the vehicle or
This is true. Not like
the ROV.
she backed down really hard.
Wow.
It's a ship. Always a female.
I only know the Argus. The Argus poundage is
Zooming.
fresh in my
and-
mind from the tour sheet, but I don't remember.
Yeah, Herc was too. Where is it? I should have that in
Not
my
a whole
pocket.
Holothurian, I don't think. Maybe it was. Yeah,
It might have been
37.
38.
Oh,
You
really? Missed one.
Yeah.
Thanks for the question that just came in about the explosion and what we expect to find.
Brian, can you adjust your microphone?
Oh, sorry.
There you go.
If you start over again. Thanks for the question that just came in about the explosion and what we expect to find. Excuse me. We actually have an eyewitness report from the time in 1938 that says that after the emergency landing there was an explosion, and then what was seen was then the wings floating on the surface for about 5 or so minutes. So we hopefully expect to be able to find those still intact. We're not sure whether the pontoons or the engines will still be attached to them, and then potentially the front or back section of the airplane may still be intact as well, but there's still, we won't really know until we find it.
When we're talking about an eyewitness seeing an explosion, we're going on second-hand and third-hand information. So we don't have a clear idea of how massive an explosion it was, how small of an explosion, but when we're talking about some sort of explosion, we're not talking about like a movie explosion where it came down and every single thing aboard was destroyed in a great big ball of fiery destruction. Given the amount of items that were found on the surface, given the size of those items and the relative intactness of those items, we are thinking that it was more of a smaller explosion. Well, we're hoping that it was more of a smaller explosion, especially since the wings were seen as intact and floating on the surface prior to them sinking. So we hope that we've got probably a couple of different scenarios, and I'm going to go ahead and mark this one.
Yeah, I think that could be related to one of the other ones.
One
that
of
we
the
have
other
here.
ones?
All right,
Yeah,
this
so
is
it's
target
good.
42.
42,
Well,
100.
maybe it's going to mark it. There we go. It's 100 to port.
Roger.
I want to see what these look like on camera.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Man.
So going back to site formation, a couple of different scenarios. Number one is that it was a small explosion and it blew out the middle of the aircraft, and we have a site that has wings and cockpit and tail in some sort of configuration together. Another scenario is that it blew off the tail and maybe we have wings and cockpit together. and you know, a similar situation, but just substituting either end, or a situation where the middle, because these hull tanks were essentially in the middle, towards the front, but in the middle of the aircraft directly underneath where the wing was, that it blew it into 3 pieces, and that we'll find 3 pieces on the seafloor, hopefully relatively close to each other. So we don't quite know, but our feeling is that we are going to find at least some parts of the aircraft, and it's not quite possible that the explosion just blew the aircraft to smithereens.
So if we treat this like a riddle, which it is, and you know I question all the premises, I have a hard time with a timeline where the plane is headed back, it's dumping fuel, and I can't resolve somebody seeing it with black billowing smoke coming from it.
Well, nobody saw it with black billowing smoke from it until it landed on the water.
Okay, so
She said that she saw what she thought was smoke coming from the wings. However,
that could have been the mist.
That was the mist from the gasoline, we are thinking. And that was what was reported in the Bureau of Air Commerce report, is that they believed that she meant gasoline. Because she said that she smelled gasoline directly after that.
They land on the water, and within 5 minutes, there's an explosion?
No, sorry. What she was saying was that she saw the aircraft going overhead with the presumably gas vapors going from the wings.
Still dumping fuel.
She said that she saw it make an immediate descent to the surface, upon which there was smoke, there was a flash, there was an explosion,
so let's
and
get
then
down, and they
there
didn't.
was the sinking.
Okay, so it may not have even landed, yeah?
We don't know.
Right, okay. That's a better timeline than what I
it could have been in the process of landing.
Right.
Do you want to go over the whole timeline, the whole sequence?
Sure.
Let's do it.
Well, in the next 10 minutes, 6 minutes, whatever, until we have a watch change coming up. So.
Well, we can do this.
We can do it.
Plane left the dock at 5:32 a.m. Pongo Pongo time on January 11th, 1938. It was reported to be airbound 5 minutes later. At 6:08 a.m. it developed an oil leak in engine number 4. 8:23 a.m. it was reported the engine with the oil leak had been stopped at 6:08 and some gasoline dumped. And some said, why did they wait till 8:23 to report that? But obviously the crew is trying to deal with the situation and decide what to do. At 6:37 a.m. it was reported that they had an oil leak in the right outboard engine and were returning to Pongo Pongo. At 6:56 a.m. the plane was seen over Pongo Pongo, and the fuel consumed, even if not dumped, this was just a calculation done after, would have been 40,629 pounds, and that was 372 pounds below the maximum authorized to land with 3 engines. At 7:35 a.m. they were back in the vicinity of Tutuila near Fagasa Bay on the north shore. The crew was preparing to dump more fuel. At 7:42 a.m. the ground station was advised that they were still dumping. And when radio was resumed, because they had to turn the radio off during dumping operations, at 7:59 the plane was over Apia in western Samoa, and at 8:27 a.m. the last comma was logged that they were dumping fuel. At 8:35 all contact was lost. Music had wanted the airport manager to send out an REM, which is a returning account of mechanical trouble, advising a 24-hour delay, but because he said they were going to dump gas and couldn't use the radio during dumping, but the manager wanted to wait until the plane had landed. Shortly after 8:35 a.m., the plane was seen flying westward offshore of Sagasa Bay in a wide circle to the northward away from land. And this is when the eyewitness was seeing fuel from both wings, and the plane descended abruptly to the water, still dumping. Flash of fire, black smoke, detonation, wings appeared visible for about 5 minutes for an interval. So it's a quick timeline. The cause was
Right,
probably a static
yeah.
charge from the flap actuator, electrically operated flap actuator.
So without running through the whole thing, jumping to the vessel going out the next morning, I think it was, or was.
Well, it went out that evening, but it had to wait till
Yeah.
daybreak to see the
And
debris.
when was daybreak the next day? 6:05, 6:04.
Something in that vicinity.
So does that mean that he took off when it was dark out?
Oh, the plane went out the same day,
No, I mean
but the
music,
vessel went
the-
out that evening and just hovered in the area.
So what was when was daylight on the morning he took off? It was after he took off?
You mean when the plane took off on January 11th?
Yeah, the
Oh,
Simone
they actually
Clipper.
couldn't. They actually couldn't tell the visibility. I mean, they said the seas were calm and the winds moderate and so forth, but they said, well, we can't do the visibility because it's still dark. So I think it was sometime after 6, I'm guessing.
Okay. Huh. And I'm guessing that the most reliable, or you would presume the most reliable location fix would be the oil slick.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which that search vessel didn't
And it's been
record.
spotted and recorded twice, yeah?
Yes, he went out in the plane after the smoke was reported and spotted the oil slick, went back, sent the Avocet out, and they
Another
stayed all night
holothurian.
in the area, waited till daybreak, and, you know, within
Yeah.
10 minutes or something, they saw the debris, and then he flew back out in the, I think it was a Grumman duck. He flew back out and confirmed that the oil slick was appeared to be coming from the bottom, and it was in the same location.
And do we know that these entities were able to accurately identify and locate repeatedly, you know, that their navigation was spot on? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
That,
yeah, and
yeah.
yes, I think that we would be able to say that they're accurate.
The crazy thing was that the ship, the Avocet, didn't record any lats and longs in their
Yeah.
logs, but
It sounds like they were
Commander.
maneuvering a lot, yeah?
they were maneuvering, changing speeds, picking up debris, right.
For our viewer asking if they found any letters or anything like that from the plane, since it was delivering mail, there's no reported accounts of them encountering any of that.
Lots of paper, bits
Lots
of paper.
Yeah. But no whole letters or anything like that.
Not that we read in the accident report. In fact, the paper, anything that was paper or soundproofing or whatever, is in very small pieces. It would have been waterlogged and hard to identify.
All those materials, what would have happened to them that were recovered? Like, would the personal effects have been returned to the next of kin?
Yeah, I was wondering that too. All the things were gathered up, put in a small bag, taken back to the station in Pongo Pongo, and eventually put aboard a ship. And I think Bureau of Air Commerce analyzed the things, and then we actually don't know what happened.
Interesting.
Copy.
Oh, there we go. Copy. Yes, actually, we're just about to go through a watch change. You might want to give 5-10 minutes for the next watch to settle in, because everybody's going to be switching comms and doing everything like that. Mike Brennan is coming on next by himself, and he. Absolutely.
Thank you.
So for those of you watching at home, it's just shy of 4 a.m. American Samoa time. We're about 12 miles off the coast of Pago Pago, American Samoa, and we're continuing our search. We're going to be going through a shift change, our watch change in a moment. So our pilots, engineers, science, communications, and video engineers will all be switching out one at a time. But we thank you for watching along with us as we continue this historic exploration for the American Samoa. We have the Air and Sea Heritage Foundation here with us leading the investigation. We'll have Dr. Mike Brennan joining us on this next watch change as well. We still only have Argus in the water, no Hercules, which is a bit different than what you might be used to if you're some of our regular watchers. You'll see that if you're watching Argus's camera that you see it heaving up and down a little bit, and that's because that's Argus's job. It's to take the heave of the ship up and down and eliminate it from Hercules. But since we don't have Hercules and you're only seeing Argus, you're seeing kind of a regular up and down motion of the ship just through the eyes of Argus. And Argus is about 15 or so meters above the seafloor, and you are looking at Argus's camera, which is pointing pretty much directly downward underneath Argus, and is essentially viewing that dark area right underneath that the side scan sonar does not cover. We're on our, I believe, 9th crossing pattern. So we've got about 45% of the 2-mile search area covered. Our tentative plan is to continue to search and go back and forth across the search pattern unless our science team dictates otherwise. And it's taken us a bit of time just because we're limited in terms of how quickly we can go. We're traveling about 1 knot or so, so we're not blazingly fast, but we're continuing to get the best side scan map that we have, being able to make sure we operate within all the limits that we need to for Argus and for the conditions, and be able to make the best use of our time. That way we can hopefully do some Hercules dives in the future and be the first to see the Samoa Clipper since 1938, 81 years ago. If you are joining us and you haven't already, we encourage you to follow us on social media at EV Nautilus and sign up for our newsletter as well with your email. If you sign up with social media, you will be able to see our posts as we start our dives. So if you're running errands or you have to step away or whatever it could possibly be and you're interested on when we're going to be diving next, you can always follow us on social media and be able to get those updates pretty instantly. Rob from Buffalo, thanks so much for that question about why we're not using Hercules currently on the search. We plan to be using Hercules in the future, but we're not currently because we need to cover as great an area as possible. So by using just Argus as kind of a tow fish, and we've actually affixed a stabilizer fin to it, we're able to continue to move and get a nice side scan view of the search area, and then be able to come up with some better ideas what targets we'd like to dive on. We're just over 3,000 meters deep, and it takes a while to get Hercules down there. Hercules is neutrally buoyant, so it has to be powered to the bottom by its thrusters, and that can take a bit of time. We have a week for this expedition, so it's our goal to be able to get as good idea of the area that we're going to be working in as possible, and then be able to clean up some of that sonar interference through some external third-party software, and the science team will then confer with each other as far as what targets they'd like us to start diving on. If you were looking at, to answer that question that just came in about potential targets, if you are looking at feed 1, that is the side scan sonar, and you see two pictures of roughly the same thing. One is a bit more long range, and one is a bit shorter range, but also higher definition. So the one in yellow is a bit clearer, higher definition, while the blue-lined images on either side of Argus are able to go a bit further. As we continue on and we see targets that the science team is interested in, they'll actually tell our data team, and navigation will make those points known and recorded, and then you can occasionally see them pull up some of those images and take a look. And you may not always hear some of the conversation that's going on, but a lot of the times they're conferring with maybe some colleagues on shore or with each other at different parts of the ship, or they come up here to the control van, so that way they can kind of postulate and see what they think about what they're seeing and their interest or level of interest in that target. We're hoping to learn another great question. Thank you guys so much. Quite a bit from this this expedition. Of course, we can never guarantee that we'll find the Samoa Clipper, but we have high hopes, and we have the Air and Sea Heritage Foundation has done just about everything they can in terms of research and background knowledge and information and locations to help us locate this wreck. But we're hoping to kind of close out a chapter for the Pan Am Foundation, the families of those who were lost during that time, the Captain Ed Music and his 6 fellow crew members. And this is an important piece of aviation history, as this was really starting to open up trans-Pacific flights as a more reliable and commonplace and acceptable terms of transportation, both for cargo and for passengers. The goal of aviation has always been to continue to explore and go places, and this was definitely in line with that. And if you learn about the crew and all the members of the crew, they were really just an all-star team. They were some of the top aviators in their field during the time. Captain Ed Music was at one point on the cover of Time magazine. These were well-known individuals who were incredibly talented and took their jobs very seriously. And it was definitely a blow to the aviation field to have lost them, but to learn more about what happened potentially, to be able to kind of write that final chapter and provide some closure and some insight, and be able to understand and better analyze such an important wreck. It's an incredibly important thing, so we can continue to understand not only what we're doing, but where we've come from. Please continue to keep those questions coming. There's a lot of great things that you all have been asking, and we definitely love hearing from you. We appreciate you spending your time with us as we continue this search. those lines you may be seeing on the side scan sonar, those are regular shaped lines are typically rocks. And you'll begin to continue to see those over and over again. If you're looking in the third feed, you can see the current line that we're on right now as we're making our way across.
That's a big rock. So for everybody listening at home, we're just finishing out our watch change. So bear with us for a couple more minutes while everybody switches out and tells their replacements anything that they need to know for the next watch. And we're continuing on our lines.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, Valeria.
How are you guys
Hello,
doing?
good morning.
Good morning. So we have Argus at around 20 meters above the sea bottom. Yeah, right?
Yeah, usually 15 to 20 meters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and do you know how many scan lines will make up the total sweep?
So currently we have 22 up right now for us to do.
Mm-hmm.
Hi.
So somewhere between what we have currently and 22. We're on line 9 right now.
Cool. So would you say that we're almost 50%? No, not yet.
A little hard to tell. The lines are slightly different sizes. It's not a perfect square that we're looking in. but we've covered a good amount of ground so far.
I would hope that we're about at least 50% done.
Yeah, I think we're doing the big lines in the middle first.
Cool.
Can you zoom out so we can see?
Oh yeah.
I forget how many there are. 20,
20.
Oops.
21.
Oh, is it 21?
Oh no.
So we're on our 9th line. So yeah, we're probably about halfway there.
So I'd like to make the note that I was very wrong about whether or not the others would keep track of sea cucumbers, because we are currently on sea cucumber number 40.
Copy.
Yeah, hi Bob, I hear you.
I think that means the other watches saw more than us if we only had 8.
Do I have to?
Yeah. For the people that are following us, 8 hours ago, when we had a previous watch, we were counting sea cucumbers, or potential sea cucumbers, on the seafloor.
$19. It's a weird looking rock.
Hmm. So how many targets do we have now?
We have a little more than 40 targets right now.
Okay.
And some of them are possibly overlapping with others. Some of them we might have imaged twice, but some of them might be concentrated in a specific area.
Cool, thank you.
You're welcome. We'll take any questions that anybody has.
Yeah. And good morning to Canada. So how many hours have we been mapping so far?
That's
More or less.
a solid question. Let me check. So we were on the bottom at 11:37 UTC, so that would put us at 28 hours now.
Mm-hmm.
All right, you're back on here. Okay. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, so the grid that we're searching right now, it's a little over 5 square kilometers. And you are right, the plane was more or less 35, a little over 35 meters long and 4 meters wide in the wreck. And I'm not exactly sure how big were the wings. Does anyone remember?
Yeah, so the wing was one piece. So today planes typically have wings attached on either side, but this is actually one piece, and then the main body of the plane was below that. And that full length was 118 feet, so it was about 40 meters, a little bit less.
Okay, thank you.
But the length of the plane was less than that. I think it was like, I think it was like 60 feet or something. So the length of the plane is actually shorter than the wingspan.
Okay. Yes, the plan would be to send Hercules in the water once we have scanned our grid and find some undeniable targets. So are we using any software post-scan to do something to clean up the scans?
Yeah, I have one. I have my computer going through a virus scan so that I don't ruin Justin's network. So that's been running overnight, and then after watch I'm gonna go and hopefully it's done and start downloading the data locally, because you can't try to process it through the network. It'd take too long. So downloading it, and then I'll be able to get the software running, and it's not going to take out all of the heave, I don't think, but it should be able to. It'll correct for the slant range, which is the sort of how things seem to get further away with distance from the sonar. There's sort of almost like a hypotenuse correction that needs to be done, so it kind of pulls things back in. And it'll also, I think, take out the stretching, because that's sort of But that's happening because we're moving so slow, so it's kind of double pinging in a way. And so each ping has a position associated with it, so it should compress those back together and hopefully get us a better look at at the targets that we're interested in.
Nice.
And I mean, the main goal also is to check and make sure that we don't have any gaps other than the one that we know about, the nadir. I don't think we do because we shorten the distance between lines, so our overlap should be good enough to cover everything. But it'll just help us look at what we've done and sort of give us another, post-survey way of looking through everything.
What are the file sizes of the data that this thing generates?
Well, we cut off the file size at so each one, it starts a new file at 600 megabytes.
Okay.
This says we've done 2,545 megabytes on this line, I think. So it's writing a couple gigs per line, I think, but it's nothing that we can't handle given the amount of video data we generate.
Yeah.
That's usually in the terabytes, but it'll take a little while to process, that's for sure.
Yeah. We have a question about the possibility of turning Argus into a metal detector. Is that something that we could do?
So using a magnetometer is a little bit difficult from an ROV like Argus because Argus is itself made of metal. But there are ways that ROVs can tow them sometimes. Most magnetometers are towed. The other issue, though, is that there are some metallic parts, of course, on the aircraft, but most of the aircraft was aluminum, which is not magnetic. Magnetometers are more used for finding buried steel or iron objects or shipwrecks. A plane, I mean, it would certainly have a magnetic signature, but it's not the sort of type of signature that say a steel-hulled ship would have.
Got it.
Yeah, so that wasn't one of the survey methods that we discussed.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for all those questions. Keep following us. And good morning to the people in Chile and Argentina that are following us.